A frozen German Shepherd collapsed at his door in the middle of a brutal Wyoming blizzard. But what happened after will chill you more than the storm. When Sam took him in, he thought he was saving a stray, until a second dog showed up and a trail of paw prints led deep into the forest. What was waiting out there changed everything. Would you have opened the door that night? Tell us below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true animal rescue stories that will break and heal your heart. The blizzard had settled over Aspen Creek like a vengeful spirit. Nestled in the remote valleys of Wyoming, the town was no stranger to snow, but tonight the storm bore teeth. Wind screamed through the pines, bending them like brittle bones, and the world outside was white, infinite, and silent. Sam Donovan, hunched beside the flickering hearth in his cabin, didn't mind the cold. In fact, he welcomed it. The more merciless the storm, the easier it was to stay hidden from the world. Sam, a man in his early 40s, had the rugged look of someone carved out of the very mountains he now called home. Broad-shouldered and tall, he moved with a limp that never truly left his right leg, a reminder of the explosion that ended his military career and stole 3 of his closest friends. His face was angular, unshaven, and hardened, with eyes like cold steel, not unkind but distant. Solitude was not his prison. It was his shelter. He had chosen this life after years of drifting from VA hospitals to veteran support centers, never truly fitting in, always haunted by the flash of fire and the scream of torn metal. Aspen Creek, with its icy isolation, had been the last stop. A cabin far from town, no cell reception, just a landline and a generator. He hunted, chopped his own firewood, wrote occasionally in an old journal he never let anyone read. He spoke to no one. That was how he liked it. The fire crackled. He sipped black coffee from a chipped mug and stared into the flames, mind drifting when a sound cracked through the storm. A scratch, then another. He froze. At first, he dismissed it. The wind sometimes scraped loose pine needles across the porch or slapped ice against the shutters. But then came the second sound. A whimper, low-pained, desperate. He set the mug down slowly, rose to his feet, and crossed the wooden floor. Each board creaked under his weight. He paused at the door. The wind howled louder now, angry, like it knew he was about to interfere. Hand on the handle, he hesitated. Then he opened the door. Snow rushed in like a wave, and the cold punched him in the chest. His flashlight beam cut through the white, revealing a shape crumpled on the porch. Sam's breath caught. It was a dog, a large German Shepherd, collapsed in the corner by the woodpile, its fur matted with ice and snow, its ribs prominent through its body. The animal didn't move, only lifted its head slightly, eyes half open, glazed but locked on Sam with quiet pleading. He took a step closer. The dog whimpered once, then went still. Sam stared at it. Memories surged. Combat dogs in Afghanistan, the smell of burning sand, the one dog that hadn't made it when the IED went off. He clenched his jaw. This wasn't the same. This was now. Damn it, he muttered. He crouched down, scooped the dog into his arms. It was heavier than it looked, but limp as a sack of wet clothes. Its fur was rough, cold as death, and reeked faintly of blood and dirt. Sam carried it inside, slammed the door against the wind, and laid the animal near the fire on an old wool blanket. "Hang in there, buddy," he whispered. He worked quickly, rubbing the dog down with another dry towel, careful not to hurt the creature further. He checked its paws, frostbitten but intact. Then its body. No fresh wounds, but the scars told their own story. Long, old lash marks down the flank. A torn ear. A pink, healed line across its left side. Someone had hurt this dog. Repeatedly. He made a broth from chicken stock and left it to cool while he kept massaging warmth into the dog's legs. The German Shepherd flinched but didn't resist. Its breathing was shallow, ragged. Sam glanced toward the window. Snow was still falling in great sheets, and the world outside was a solid wall of white. If the dog had been out there for long, it was a miracle it had survived. The fire warmed the room, flickering across the walls and onto the dog's fur, now slowly softening as ice melted. Sam poured the warm broth into a small bowl and brought it over. "Can you do this?" he asked softly. The dog didn't respond. Sam dipped his finger into the broth and touched it to the dog's lips. After a moment, the tongue flicked out. Then, with great effort, the shepherd shifted and lapped slowly from a bowl. Sam exhaled, relief, guarded and thin. "You've got some fight left," he said, half smiling. The hours crawled by. Outside, the storm grew crueler. Trees groaned under the weight of snow. But inside the cabin, a small haven had formed. A man with a past and a dog with scars, huddled beside fire in silence. Sam didn't know where the dog had come from, but something in its eyes had told him it wasn't just random. It had come to him for a reason. Maybe not one Sam understood yet, but reasons didn't always arrive with clarity. Sometimes they arrived half dead on your porch in the middle of a blizzard. He stood slowly, his leg aching, and covered the dog with another blanket. Then he sat in an armchair again and watched the flames. The dog's breathing was steadier now. His own heart, long walled off, felt oddly unguarded. That terrified him. He looked down at the shepherd and murmured, "You're safe now." The dog didn't move, but something in the room had changed. The storm still raged, but inside, at least for tonight, there was warmth. And something else beginning. He didn't have a name for it yet, but it felt real. By morning, the storm had lessened its grip on Aspen Creek, though snow still fell in soft, endless sheets, blanketing the town and forest alike. Sam Donovan stood at the frosted window of his cabin, cradling a fresh cup of coffee in his calloused hands. Outside, the trees were cloaked in white, their branches bowed under the weight. He glanced down at the figure lying near the hearth. The German shepherd, whom he had simply started calling Major without even realizing it, was still curled beneath the thick wool blanket. His breathing was slow but steady. The ice was gone from his fur, replaced by a dull dampness and a faint but warm scent of dog and smoke. Sam crouched beside him and gently lifted the edge of the blanket. What he saw made his stomach twist. Major's fur was sparse along his ribs, revealing long scars, some old and healed, others newer, red and raw. The dog shifted slightly at the touch, letting out a low whimper, but didn't growl or pull away. Sam had seen scars like these before, not on animals, but on soldiers. It was the pattern of something or someone that had meant harm again and again. "You've been through hell, haven't you?" Sam murmured. Major blinked once, then licked his own paw slowly, as if acknowledging the truth. Sam spent the next hour cleaning the wounds more thoroughly, applying a bit of salve he had left over from an old first aid kit. The dog didn't resist, only flinched now and then as the ointment stung. When he was finished, Sam sat back against the log wall, exhaling slowly. He didn't ask for this. He didn't want this connection. But now, he couldn't imagine letting Major go. The silence was broken by the sudden, sharp ring of his landline phone, the only communication tethered to the outside world. He startled. Hardly anyone ever called. He stood and walked over, the limp in his leg slowing him slightly. When he picked up, the voice on the other end was familiar, tinged with tension. "Sam? It's Ellis, Sheriff's Department." Deputy Ellis Monroe had known Sam from town. Young, mid-30s, earnest to a fault, with a sandy mop of hair and a lean build from too much coffee and not enough food. Kind-hearted, a little awkward, but sharp when it mattered. "There's been another one," Ellis said. "Dog gone missing. Belonged to the Bloomfields. Wasn't it the family with the old golden retriever?" Sam asked, gripping the receiver tighter. "Yeah, gone without a trace. That's the third this month." There was a pause, and then, "I know you like your space, but if you hear anything, see anything, I'll call," Sam promised, his eyes flicking to Major. After he hung up, the unease stayed with him. Sam dressed, pulling on his winter coat and boots, and headed out to check the perimeter of his property. Major, surprisingly, struggled to his feet and followed him a few steps before sitting back down. It was the first time Sam had seen him attempt to rise. "Easy," Sam said gently. "We're not going far." The snow had muffled all signs of motion, but something tugged at Sam's gut, a gut that had learned in Afghanistan when things didn't feel right, they usually weren't. He circled the back of the cabin. No tracks aside from the ones from the night before, already nearly erased by fresh snow. But he did spot something unusual near the tree lean. A bit of torn blue fabric caught on a low branch, fluttering slightly. It looked like nylon, jacket material. Frowning, he pocketed it and went back inside. Major was waiting by the fire, ears slightly perked. Sam sat down and absently ran his fingers along the dog's head. The gesture felt strange, intimate. He hadn't touched another living being with affection in years. He spent the afternoon repairing the generator, cleaning gear, and splitting some firewood. By late afternoon, Major had eaten half a bowl of food and drunk a full bowl of water and was now dozing with his head on Sam's worn-out duffel bag. But Sam's thoughts were elsewhere. That evening, curiosity, or maybe something deeper, drew him into town. He didn't go often, but when he did, he always stopped by Miller's Supply, a one-stop general store run by a woman named Rachel Miller. She was in her late 40s, with silver-streaked auburn hair usually tied in a bun, glasses slipping down her nose, and a warm, sarcastic demeanor. She was one of the few people in Aspen Creek who knew not to ask Sam too many questions. As Sam entered, the store's warm lights and wood smoke scent enveloped him. Rachel looked up from her counter, where she was organizing cans. Sam Donovan, in from the cold. Either hell's frozen over, or you ran out of coffee. A little of both, Sam replied dryly. She smirked. You hear about the Bloomfield's retriever? He nodded. Ellis called me. Rachel's expression shifted to something more serious. People are scared, Sam. Dogs going missing isn't normal around here. You think someone's taking them? I don't think coyotes know how to open latches and leave no blood. She lowered her voice. And last week, Marcia from the feed store said she saw a man in a white van parked outside her property for over an hour. No plates. Sam filed that away. Why would someone steal dogs? Rachel shrugged. Money? Breeding? Fights. Then she added softly, or worse. He bought supplies and left quickly, not liking the twist in his gut. Back home, he found Major awake, staring at the door. The dog had perked up, ears alert, nose twitching. Sam approached cautiously. What is it? Major growled, low and long. Sam froze, his hand going instinctively to the hunting knife near the doorframe. He moved to the window, peered into the dark beyond the porch. Nothing but snow. But he trusted instincts, his and the dog's. No footprints, no sign, just the crackle of fire behind him and the soft thud of Major's tail, no longer wagging, just brushing the floor as he lay down again. Sam stayed up that night, unable to shake the thought. Someone was out there, and for some reason, Major had come to him. The snow returned 3 nights later, gentler than before, but constant, as if the valley was being slowly swallowed in silence. Sam Donovan stood on his porch, wrapped in a thick coat and watching the flakes descend under the amber glow of his cabin's porch light. Major sat beside him, ears slightly cocked, his amber eyes flicking toward the tree line with quiet tension. Though his body was still recovering, there was a new sharpness to him, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Sam had noticed it earlier that day. Major's alertness. The way he would suddenly stiffen mid-step as if listening to something Sam couldn't hear. The way he had sat at the door for nearly an hour, unmoving, staring out into the dark. Now, under the gentle hush of falling snow, that behavior returned. Major stood abruptly, nose twitching. A low, throaty whine escaped him, not of fear, but longing. Sam narrowed his eyes. What is it, boy? Major didn't answer, of course. But he took 3 steps forward, then looked back. Sam followed. They moved through the snow to the edge of the property, where the porch light ended and the darkness took over. Sam gripped his flashlight and clicked it on. The beams sliced through the falling flakes, illuminating nothing at first. Then a sound, barely audible, a whimper. Major surged forward, and Sam followed him around the side of the house, toward the small shed he rarely used. There, huddled against the wooden wall, was a second dog. It was smaller than Major, leaner and younger, barely out of adolescence. A German shepherd mix, by the looks of it, with soot-gray fur speckled with frost and trembling paws half buried in the snow. Its eyes, wide and desperate, locked onto Sam the moment the flashlight found it. Jesus, Sam muttered, immediately kneeling. The dog didn't growl or run. It just lay there, too weak to do anything else. Sam scooped it into his arms, just like he had with Major. The dog's ribs pressed through its fur like twigs under skin, and a faint scar ringed its neck, a faded indentation as if it had been chained far too long. Sam didn't speak. He just carried it inside. Back in the warmth, Major trotted beside him and watched as Sam laid the newcomer onto the same old blanket he had used for him. The smaller dog whimpered once, then curled into itself like a child in a storm. Sam fetched broth, warm towels, and began the now-familiar ritual of bringing life back into a half-frozen animal. Major sat close, watching. When the younger dog stirred and weakly lifted its head, the older shepherd leaned in, and for a moment the two touched noses. Recognition flickered between them. "You know each other," Sam said aloud, his voice low. He watched as the older dog settled beside the younger one, wrapping his body gently against it, sharing warmth the way only those who've suffered together could. Sam knelt beside them, eyes searching. Who was doing this? The next morning, he phoned Sheriff Lily Grant, something he hadn't done in years. Lily, now in her early 40s, was a pragmatic woman with the kind of authority that came not from bluster, but from quiet steel. Tall and lean, with shoulder-length dark blonde hair, usually pulled into a ponytail, she wore her badge more like an obligation than pride. Her expression was usually neutral, but her eyes, gray and sharp, missed nothing. When she answered, her voice was curt. "Sheriff Grant." "It's Donovan," Sam said. "I've got another one." Silence. "Dog?" she asked. "Same breed. Same condition. No tags. No collar. Same scars." Lily sighed. "Stay put. I'll drive out." Sam felt a flicker of surprise. He hadn't expected her to come herself. But then again, he hadn't expected to find two abused dogs on his doorstep either. 35 minutes later, a four-wheel drive police truck crunched into the drive. Lily stepped out in a heavy sheriff's coat, black gloves, and worn boots. She walked up the porch like someone used to bad news. Inside, her eyes immediately found the dogs. She knelt, examined the younger one, then the older. "These aren't random," she said. "Someone's placing them here. Or they're escaping and finding their way here," Sam countered. She looked up at him. "Either way, they know where to go." Sam leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "What are you doing about the disappearances?" "We've got a few leads. Suspicious vehicles. One witness. But nothing concrete. Rachel mentioned a van with no plates." "I know. We haven't found it." Lily stood. "You always did have a way with strays, Donovan." He frowned. "I mean it as a compliment," she added. "You should bring these two to town. Let Doc Hallie take a look." "No," Sam said firmly. "They're staying here." Lily raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're up for that?" He didn't answer directly. "I'll handle it." She didn't push. "Just keep your eyes open. Whoever's behind this, they're not done." Before leaving, she paused at the door. "You're not the only one who's been trying to forget things, Sam. But sometimes they find you anyway." That night, Sam sat beside the fire again. The two dogs, Major and the smaller one, who he now called Scout, slept soundly, curled together like brothers. He turned over Lily's words in his mind. Maybe this wasn't just about abused dogs. Maybe something bigger was moving beneath the snow. Someone was dumping or losing these animals near his cabin, and that someone might come back. As if on cue, Major stirred, his ears twitching. Sam leaned forward. "What is it?" The dog sat up, facing the door. Scout stayed curled up but gave a soft, uncertain bark. Sam walked to the window and peered out. This time he saw something. Just at the edge of the woods, barely visible beneath the moonlight and snowfall, a figure. Not animal. Human. Standing still. Watching. Then it turned and vanished into the trees. Sam didn't sleep that night. He sat up with a rifle on his lap, heart thudding with a clarity he hadn't felt in years. By dawn, the snow had stopped. The forest around Sam Donovan's cabin stood cloaked in silence, save for the soft groan of settling ice and the distant creak of pines shifting in the still air. It had been a long, sleepless night. The figure he'd seen at the tree line haunted his thoughts, tall, motionless, observing. Whoever it was hadn't approached, but hadn't run either. They had watched and then vanished. That, more than anything, unsettled Sam. He stood by the porch with his coat zipped to the throat, his breath fogging in the air. Major sat beside him, silent and tense. Scout, still weak, watched from the cabin window, head tilted with curiosity but not the strength to follow. Sam's boots crunched on the snow as he made his way across the clearing toward where he'd seen the figure. He scanned the ground. At first, nothing. Then, barely visible, prints. One set, human, deep and deliberate. He crouched low and traced the track with his gloved hand. The snow had frozen again overnight, but here, it was churned and uneven. Whoever had stood here had moved around, restless, maybe watching from multiple angles. "Come on," he muttered to Major, and together they followed the trail into the trees. The footprints led deep into the forest behind the cabin, winding between pine trunks and under low-hanging branches. The further they went, the rougher the path. Sam recognized parts of the terrain, old hunting trails, disused and mostly overgrown, but the route the intruder had taken wasn't one a casual hiker would know. It was deliberate, weaving through narrow clearings and under thick brush, like someone who'd been here many times. Nearly a mile in, Sam paused. Up ahead, barely visible through a thicket of young aspens, was a gate. Rusted, slanted, nearly swallowed by snowdrifts. Behind it, a collapsed barn, gray and broken-backed, and a house beyond it, low, squat, and long abandoned. The windows were black pits, glass shattered. The roof sagged. A crooked mailbox at the edge read Willoughby Farm, the paint long faded. Sam had heard the name once. An old farmstead, foreclosed after the owner died years ago. No one had bought it since. Too remote, too rundown. Major gave a low growl. Sam passed through the gate and approached slowly. The snow around the barn had been disturbed recently, boot prints and paw marks. Not just two dogs, at least half a dozen. Sam knelt and examined a fresh indentation in the snow where something heavy had been dragged. He followed it to the barn, where one door stood ajar. Inside, the air was stale with the scent of rot and urine. The barn was dark, filled with the skeletal remains of stalls and farm equipment. In one corner, against a slanted wall, stood 3 metal cages. Empty now, but lined with straw, some bloodied. One still had a rusty chain dangling from the bar. Sam's stomach turned. He stepped closer and spotted a chewed leather collar in the straw. No tag, no name, just cracked leather and dry blood. He backed away slowly, hand instinctively moving toward the hunting knife on his belt. "Looks like we're not imagining things, huh?" came a voice from the doorway. Sam spun around, startled. Sheriff Lily Grant stood there, snow dusting her shoulders, a pistol holstered at her hip, her eyes cool but alert. Behind her was another figure, a man in his 50s, thickly built, wrapped in a brown wool coat and flannel scarf. His name was Deputy Frank Rourke, known in town for being gruff and cautious. Gray beard, crow's feet from years of squinting at trouble, and the kind of man who didn't speak unless necessary. Lily stepped inside, boots crunching softly. We followed a separate trail from the North Ridge. Came across more prints. "Let us hear. You knew about this place?" Sam asked, voice low. Lily nodded. "It's on the edge of our jurisdiction. Off-grid. No one's supposed to be here, but a few old complaints have trickled in over the years. Lights at night. Engine sounds. Nothing concrete." Sam gestured to the cages. "This looked concrete enough?" She didn't answer. Instead, she knelt beside one of the cages and examined the latch. It had been forced open from the inside. Deep claw marks scratched across the metal. Frank spoke, his voice gravelly. "They fought their way out." Sam added, "Scout had a scar around his neck. From a chain." Lily stood. This wasn't random. Someone was keeping them here. Maybe breeding them. Training them. Or worse. Frank walked to the barn wall and lifted an old tarp. Beneath it were bags, dog food, some fresh, others torn open. A metal dish sat beside a plastic syringe. No label. Sam frowned. They were being injected with something? "We need to run tests," Lily said. This wasn't a rescue shelter. This was something else. Sam glanced at the dark house beyond the barn. "Think they're still here?" "No," she said, "but they'll come back." Later that evening, back in his cabin, Sam sat in front of the fire with a map spread across his coffee table. Scout lay nearby, snoring lightly. Major kept pacing near the door, alert. Sam marked the location of Willoughby Farm on the map, then drew a circle around the points where dogs had gone missing based on what Lily had told him. The pattern wasn't random. It was radiating outward from the farm. He was still staring at the map when the phone rang again. This time, it was Rachel Miller from a supply store. Her voice was shaky. "Sam, I think someone was in my backyard." "What happened?" "My dog, Max, he's gone. He was in the yard. Fence was closed." Sam gripped the receiver tighter. "I'll tell Lily." But after he hung up, he stood in silence for a long moment. Then he grabbed his coat, loaded his rifle, and looked at Major. "We're going back out." The storm was over, but something darker was still out there. The air was thick with tension as Sam Donovan and Sheriff Lily Grant stood outside the decrepit Willoughby house. Moonlight slanted through the broken windows and frost-covered shingles, casting long, crooked shadows across the snow. The discovery in the barn, rusted cages, bloodied straw, and syringes, was disturbing enough, but both of them knew the true horror likely lay inside the house. Sam adjusted the strap of the rifle on his shoulder and nodded toward the door. Lily gave a short, quiet nod in return. Her breath misted in the cold air, but her hand was steady as she unholstered her sidearm. They moved in tandem. The door creaked open with a groan that seemed to echo through the surrounding trees. The hallway beyond was dark and stale, filled with the scent of mold, dog urine, and something metallic beneath it all, something sharp and coppery. Blood. They moved carefully through the rooms. The place had once been a home. Framed photographs still clung to the wallpapered walls, crooked and dust-covered. A child's drawing was pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a football helmet. But those days were long gone. The floorboards creaked under their weight, and somewhere deep in the house, something shifted. Then they heard it, a faint whimper. Lily held up a hand. Sam froze. The sound came again. Downstairs. They found the basement door in the kitchen, half concealed behind a sagging pantry shelf. The smell was stronger here, and the stairs creaked as they descended, each step an accusation. The flashlight beams danced over cracked concrete, water stains, and then cages. 6 of them. 2 occupied. The first dog, a black Labrador, ribs showing, fur matted, raised its head weakly. The other, a tan mutt with scars across its muzzle, didn't move at all. Both looked at Sam and Lily with hollow eyes, as if begging for mercy they no longer expected to receive. Lily's jaw clenched. She stepped forward to unlock the first cage, but a sharp click stopped her cold. "Don't," a voice drawled from the shadows. "Not unless you're ready to make things real messy." Sam turned slowly, instinctively placing himself between the voice and Lily. A tall figure emerged from the gloom behind an old furnace. He was in his early 50s, but still broad-shouldered and strong, with a weathered face carved by years of harsh sun and harsher choices. A thick gray beard framed his mouth, and his eyes, pale, almost colorless, held the cold calculation of a man who had nothing left to lose. Hank Galloway. He was known in Aspen Creek as a drifter-turned-entrepreneur who'd once run a dog training school before it was shut down for procedural violations. No one had proven anything criminal, but rumors had followed him ever since. He had vanished from public view over a year ago. Now Sam knew why. Hank held a shotgun, aimed not at Sam, but at Lily. "I was wondering how long before someone sniffed around here," he said, voice low and calm. "Should have figured it'd be you, Grant. Still got that nose for trouble, huh?" "Put it down, Hank," Lily said firmly. "This ends tonight." "I agree, but not the way you think." He moved closer, and without warning, lunged forward, grabbing Lily with one arm and dragging her back. The shotgun barrel pressed against her ribs. She fought him, elbowing hard, but he was ready. Sam raised his rifle, but Hank twisted, using Lily as a shield. "Easy," Hank barked. "I ain't looking to kill anybody unless I have to. You let me walk out of here, she lives." Sam's pulse pounded. His rifle trembled, not from fear, but from control. One wrong move could end everything. "You don't want this," Sam said. "Let her go. You want leverage? I'm right here." "I know who you are," Donovan, Hank sneered. "War hero, ghost in the woods. But you don't scare me. You got too much heart. That's your weakness." Behind Sam, there was a sudden growl. "Major." The dog had crept down the stairs silently, unseen, eyes locked on Hank. Scout followed, limping, still weak but determined. Hank hadn't noticed them yet. His eyes were fixed on Sam. Sam lowered his rifle slightly. "You want out of this, Hank? Fine, but not like this. Let her go. You'll never make it otherwise." "I'll make it," Hank growled. "I've done worse for less." But as he stepped backward toward the basement door, something changed. Scout barked, a sharp, piercing cry, and lunged forward. Not to attack, but to distract. Hank flinched. In that instant, Major moved like lightning. The big shepherd slammed into Hank's side, teeth bared, knocking the man sideways. Lily wrenched free, rolling to the ground. Sam dove forward, kicking the shotgun out of Hank's hands. It clattered across the concrete. Major growled, standing protectively over Lily. Hank was sprawled on the floor, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. He reached for his belt, but Sam was faster. The butt of the rifle slammed into Hank's wrist. The man howled in pain. Lily got to her feet, breathing hard, gun drawn. "On your stomach. Now." Hank, groaning, turned over, hands behind his back. Sam stood over him, chest heaving. Major didn't move from Lily's side. Outside, headlights flashed. Deputy Frank Rourke appeared moments later, gun raised. "Heard the distress call. You two all right?" "We are now," Lily said, her voice hoarse. "Thanks to them." She looked down at the two dogs. "Major, calm now." Scout, trembling but proud. "Let's get these animals out of here," Sam said quietly, "and burn this place to the ground." The old Willoughby house smoldered in the distance, its blackened timbers crackling as orange embers drifted upward into the early morning sky. Snow had begun to fall again, softly, as if nature were trying to cleanse what had been done within those walls. Sam Donovan stood silently at the edge of the tree line, the cold seeping through his jacket, but unable to numb the weightless feeling in his chest. For the first time in years, it wasn't the kind of weightlessness that came from apathy or grief. It was something lighter, something close to peace. Major stood beside him, alert but calm, the tips of his ears dusted in white. Scout lay further back in the open bed of Deputy Rourke's truck, curled up in a pile of old wool blankets, eyes half-lidded but watchful. The two dogs had been checked out briefly by Dr. Elaine Hartley, the town's veterinarian, a woman in her late 50s with short silver hair and an efficient, no-nonsense demeanor. She'd arrived just after backup from the sheriff's department, her weathered parka half-covered in dog hair and her eyes soft despite her sharp voice. Elaine had confirmed both dogs were dehydrated, underfed, and bruised, but would recover with rest and care. Now, as the structure behind them burned away years of darkness, Sam finally felt the tension in his shoulders begin to release. Lily Grant approached quietly from behind, her steps slow and deliberate. She was bundled in a thermal jacket, her hair tied back, and a line of dried blood still traced her temple where Hank had caught her during the scuffle. But her eyes were clear, focused, and grateful. "You all right?" she asked. Sam nodded, glancing sideways at her. "I've been worse," she replied, and offered the kind of half-smile that lingered longer than her words. "You did good back there." Sam looked out at the snow. "I spent a long time running from things. Pain, guilt, thought maybe hiding in a cabin was all I was good for." Lily didn't answer right away. Instead, she watched the last of the flames lick the collapsed rafters. "You didn't hide tonight." He gave a short laugh. "Major wouldn't let me." They stood there in silence a moment longer. Then Lily said, "You could come back. To town. To life." Sam looked at her. The suggestion hung in the air, weightless but real. The idea of joining the community again, of not being the recluse with the cabin and the shadows. It was terrifying. And yet, the thought didn't make his chest seize the way it used to. Instead, he said, "Maybe." 2 days later, the snow still hadn't let up. But inside Sam's cabin, the world felt warmer than it had in years. Scout, now walking with a limp but steadily, had begun to follow Major around like a younger sibling learning from the elder. Sam had cleared a corner of the living room and placed 2 thick beds, fresh bowls, and a repurposed rug for them to rest on. Major took to it immediately. Scout preferred to sleep closer to the hearth, where the fire's glow reached his paws. Sam had also reopened a drawer he hadn't touched in a long time, one filled with his old journals, medals, and photos from the army. One night, he sat at the table, writing again. Not for therapy, not out of obligation, just writing. Major sat beside his chair, head resting on Sam's foot, silent but present. There was a knock on the door. Not a desperate scratch. Not the wind. A real knock. Sam opened it to find Rachel Miller, the supply store owner, bundled in a puffy green coat and holding a Tupperware of something steaming. "Don't worry," she said, brushing snow from her hat. "It's meatloaf, not dog food." He raised an eyebrow, and she smirked. "Word travels fast. Lily said you might be in need of actual human contact." Sam stepped aside and let her in. Rachel walked past Major with a nod, then set the food on the counter. "You should know the whole town's talking," she said. "Not just about Hank. About you." "Yeah," he asked. "Yeah, about how the ghost in the woods turned out to be the one who saved it." Sam looked out the window. Scout was nosing a stick in the snow near the porch steps. Major watched, head cocked, tail thumping. "I didn't save anything," Sam muttered. Rachel picked up a mug and filled it from the coffee pot. "Maybe, but you showed everyone it's possible to come back." That weekend, a gathering was held in Aspen Creek's small park near the library. Snow had been cleared just enough for people to huddle under space heaters, sipping cider and exchanging stories. Sheriff Lilly spoke to the crowd briefly, confirming that Hank Galloway had been charged with animal cruelty, illegal confinement, and a string of related crimes. Sam stood near the back, coat zipped high, hood pulled low, not hiding, just observing. Major sat beside him. Scout was curled in Rachel's lap nearby, wearing a small knit scarf someone had given him. Children ran past with sleds. A group of teens built a snow dog in the corner of the park. For the first time, Sam felt like he belonged in the picture rather than just watching from the edge of it. Lily found him at the end of the event, still thinking about disappearing into the woods. He shook his head. "No, I'm thinking about building a new fence." "For the dogs?" she asked. He nodded. "For the family." She smiled. "Good. Aspen Creek could use a few more people like you." Sam looked down at Major, then toward Scout. Then he looked around at the snow-covered town, where people were laughing, living. "I think it already has them," he said. "Sometimes, the ones who seem most lost are the ones carrying the greatest light." Sam thought he had nothing left to give the world, until a dog frozen on his doorstep reminded him that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about showing up, especially when it hurts. Major and Scout didn't just need saving. They became the reason Sam saved himself. In our everyday lives, we pass by silent battles we may never see. A neighbor struggling with grief, an animal longing for warmth, someone isolating themselves out of fear or pain. This story reminds us to open our doors, not just the ones made of wood, but the ones built around our hearts. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts, or simply type amen if you're praying for healing, kindness, and the courage to choose connection again. And if you believe in the power of compassion and loyalty, subscribe to our channel for more stories that warm the soul. God bless every one of you watching this.